Awesome. We should be live. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining the second episode of Energy Web Behind the Scenes. I'm pretty sure everyone has heard of our guest today. Ed, welcome. Do you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me. My name is Ed, Ewald Hesse. I'm one of the founders of Energy Web Foundation and Gridsingularity, a couple of other ventures as well, but energy is my thing.
Oh, why is energy your thing?
I was so I'm educated mechanical engineer, and I kicked off my career I worked in the corporate industry for quite a while, 12 years. First at ABB, I was programming control systems for hydropower plants, and then went into sales. And then I spent another 5, 6 years at a company called Andritz, which is the largest hydropower producer in the world. And I was running their markets in Southeast Europe. And in this industry, it's a very slow-moving industry, and but super interesting, really, because this is the lifeblood of society, energy, and being involved in that, and having the chance to see how really kind of how large scale installations are being developed, and how this whole system, how the whole energy system runs, was very exciting.
Awesome, awesome. So let me just briefly check if everyone can hear us clearly. We have a huge community. Some of them are telling us that we can't hear anything. So let me just double check. Um,
Whole system, whole.
yeah, so I think it's working. Awesome. So Ed, let's talk a little bit about your connection to Energy Web and the Energy Web Foundation. You are a founder and CEO of Grid Singularity, but also a council member of the Energy Web Foundation. So could you take us back to the origins, like where did Energy Web start and how is Grid Singularity involved?
Yeah. So I mean, the first ideas to this started already in 2013. So I encountered crypto in 12, and at that time I was still working at the hydropower company. And after reading the Bitcoin white paper, it was like, wow, that was so fascinating to see that you can create something where nobody has a control of. Because at that time, a few years before, we did a very large scale deal between two countries, where we had clean development, CDM, kind of a clean development kind of tool to offset carbons, and that helped financing a very large hydropower plant in Bulgaria. And establishing this deal took ages. It was unbelievably complex. And at the end, it was just a few certificates changing the hands. But establishing this took 3 years' time. It was funding a $150 million dollar hydropower plant.
And what was the
And when I
main
s-
what was the main blocker here, like the main barrier?
it was just the trust. It was really coming from there. How is it being accounted for? And institutions, verifying other institutions, and it's just too many parties involved. It was so many parties involved, and just getting this simple certificates, being accounted for, that was a really pain in the ass. And so reading the Bitcoin white paper, where check with one click you can bring the certificate over, was like, wow, how can we use this in energy? And then the first project that actually tried to do other tokens than Bitcoin, it was Mastercoin and Colored Coins. So I was in touch with those guys, and we were talking about it. And then it was like, this is still a bit rigid. And then Vitalik was already in the space. He worked at he was at Mastercoin before, but then he had his magazine, and then he kicked off his white paper on Ethereum, and it was like, wow, this is it. This is super interesting, because this this would allow us to establish something like this, where we can fund renewables in a much easier, well, hopefully much easier way. And so I got in touch with them right as they formed the Ethereum Foundation team. Gav just joined them, and Gav became CTO, and it was literally like a week after they had their first meeting in Miami. They came to Vienna. I lived in Vienna at that time, and there we made a very simple kind of, I decided to go into research, and while they were building Ethereum, and so we had a lot of workshops. And one of those workshops, I think there is a video
Yeah. There
on
is
which,
indeed a video of
yeah,
it. So Sam, I don't know if you're in the channels. Could you share the video? There's an old video where they had a brainstorm session, and I think that's the place where NEG, like the idea, came to life, right?
yeah. So to be honest, we started like, you know, so we had Gav and someone else from the crypto space. Then I brought, we had the World Bank there. We had a World Bank representative there, which advised governments on policies. So we had other software engineers and mechanical engineers there, and people that are professional in communication protocols. And Energy Web, it took quite a while to come to the solution how Energy Web would be established later on, but that was the beginning. And then we had workshops over 1.5 years all over the world. We went to, I wanted to show to Gav and his team how the regulators are creating policy, how policy is evolving. And at the end of the 1.5 years, I think we had over 15 business models on the table. It was from trading, identity, decentralized data access management, and we had all the theory there. We had all the slides, all the possibilities there if Ethereum would work. And 3 months into launch of Ethereum, the test network was already running, but the test network was also actually pausing from time to time, and it was very kind of shaky moment. And then as Ethereum launched I think it was end of July 15, and Ethereum, we all invested into Ethereum. It was, because we believed in this grand vision, and at that time we already had first discussions how we would then materialize kind of all the research that we did, or how. And at the beginning, the idea was of one company, which was ETH Core, but then we decided to go into two companies, and so one became ETH Core, which is now Parity, and the other one is Gridsingularity. And so Gav and his team, they were co-founders at Gridsingularity and so forth, because the idea at that time was all that we have on the table, all the research is so groundbreaking, and it would transform energy markets so much. You cannot do this as a single like normal limited liability company. It will be impossible. It's just too big of a task. We thought it is a moonshot anyways. We were like, yeah, but, and then Ethereum, half a year after the launch of Ethereum, it went up, and then in 2016, beginning of 2016, over 100 startups were born out of the Ethereum space.
Yeah.
And mainly all those people that were invested into Ethereum before, and that's where we said, like, okay, now we can fund our endeavors, and let's go for it.
So
And
is it correct to assume that you guys just took all the research and just put it into two separate companies? So one was Gridsingularity, all the research that
no,
you
no, no,
did.
no. So there is a very specific way to launch a decentralized network,
Mm-hmm.
and the only example at that until 2016 how to do that. You had either Bitcoin, which was like, very guerrilla style, slowly growing, and or you had Ethereum, which was founded, which was kicked off through a nonprofit foundation in Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the only benchmarks we had. So we knew, so the rationale to make to make a separate network was simply Ethereum was already there, and there was a lot of concerns from regulators, about the validators and so forth, and about we had in 2016 we had a split from Ethereum and Ethereum Classic, and it was, it became very obvious that regulators from the energy market is heavily regulated. They would never accept something where they probably don't know the validators. So we said, okay, we have to make a parallel thing, which has its own sovereignty, where the identities are known of the validators. And so we, from the foundation, we sponsored Parity to build this technology, which was the proof of authority consensus mechanism,
Yeah.
which was then actually taken by many other companies. So the way Binance Chain, many other proof of authority chains, they took the concept, which we actually funded at the very beginning, and that was a very digestible kind of way, to onboard corporates, and because the thinking went, if we don't bring the biggest players on board, I doubt we can really convert, we can really change the market. And obviously, we had examples from IBM and other kind of large service providers in the IT space that also provided blockchain kind of technology, but it was all closed. That was also a very important task, decision that we made to make the chain publicly accessible.
Yeah.
Simply out of the reason I've been part of consortia before, before all of this happened, and if the consortium is completely closed, then it's you're swimming in the same soup. Innovation is not happening. There is not someone randomly coming and making some innovation. This is because you immediately establish a gate for other people to come in. And so for us, it was okay. We need a parallel chain to have acceptance of regulators at one point in time. We need to have sovereignty, and it needs to be publicly accessible to enable a higher degree of innovation. And we found Rocky Mountain Institute as a partner at that time. And we showed them the blueprint of Ethereum, how to launch a decentralized network. And so Rocky Mountain Institute and Gridsingularity, we jointly founded the foundation. And if you look at Polkadot or many other networks that were launched in the similar kind of in those years, it's always was the same procedure at that time. It's different now because there is more regulation around this. So Polkadot, which is this was founded by the Web3 Foundation, which is actually not far away from the Energy Web Foundation in Zug. This foundation was founded by Parity. So there was always at first a limited liability company that founded a foundation for the launch of the network. And at the beginning, at least at the beginning, those foundations, from the proceeds, they were funding the company which was developing the technology. And that's how, in the first 3 years, the foundation was there as a vehicle, as a non-profit vehicle to create the consortium. And Rocky Mountain Institute and Gridsingularity, we made like a clear division between our tasks. On the one side, Rocky Mountain Institute did the education and bringing all the partners on board, and we provided the technology together with Parity. So we built the POA chain and all the applications in task forces with all the affiliates. We basically opened all our research there, and then we ranked the research. What is the lowest hanging fruit? What is the most difficult? And if I look at this from our current perspective, the lowest hanging fruit was certificate of origin. And that was the first application that was developed, that was accepted by most of the corporates that were part of the consortium. The highest, the most difficult one, but kind of the most interesting, was peer-to-peer trading. Why it is the most difficult one? Because there's like tons of regulation around that. And that was and that's how we kicked off. We had task force groups where we developed the protocols, developed the frameworks and so forth, and then it was up to the specific consortium members to take it and deploy it. And there was some companies like Shell and Engie, they were much faster at deploying it than others, and that was the play. And in 2000, I think 18 or 19, as the foundation was growing, we announced it in 2017. We made an event around it, Event Horizon, and 3 months later, we had 12 of the largest company joining us from Japan, from Thailand, from US, from everywhere, all over the world. And then half a year later, we had 60 more affiliates. And I think at the peak time, it was 250 affiliates from all over the world.
Yeah.
And those affiliates, they paid a one-time membership fee. And at the same time, that was a very unusual thing to do, because there was a big discussion, how do we issue the token? And it's okay, this is a membership fee, and we allow, and that's exactly how we're going to distribute the token. We didn't do a public sale. It was only to the affiliates that where we issued the tokens. And it was very difficult. It cost the foundation a lot of money, with lawyers to on the one side how to account for this, how to deal with this, how to deal with a token on a balance sheet. And I think here in this perspective, we were definitely pioneers. A, on the POA chain, B, working with corporates that that deal with tokens. Pretty much everything we did, we barely had it in benchmark. It was
Yeah.
always like, who can we call? Who did it already? Nobody did it. So
And
nobody had a clue how to do it. Yeah.
and if you look at where it started and where Energy Web is right now with those solutions and what we are doing right now, how do you envision, like, is this what you guys had aimed for, or is it way better, or what was the expectation? Are we already at a stage where we can say, hey, mission accomplished, or are you like, hey, we still need to do a lot of
No,
work?
no. So I have two contradictory kind of opinions in this direction. So, if I look at my kind of corporate career that I had before, and I was happy if I closed a deal after 3 years for a very large scale hydropower plant. Energy Web is like 5 years old. I was like, wow, okay. And the energy market is moving super slow because of the regulation. And so I think what we achieved in 5 years is already incredible. From the perspective, we have regulators working with us. We have regulated entities that, for example, transmission system operators or independent system operators on a worldwide scale working with us, with a company that is just 5 years old, which in energy market is a very difficult, very, very difficult thing to do. It's actually impossible. So from this perspective, I'm still, amazed that, we could pull it off with the whole consortium. And from the other side, of course, coming also from crypto space, I mean, like in crypto space, in those 5 years, we have survived how many bear markets? And so I wish it would work faster, but I think the adoption will go in an exponential way. Exactly like the affiliates joined us at the beginning. The biggest joined us. It was 10. It was a very difficult sale, but then the next half a year, 60 joined us, and it's a reputation game. Because if a country really looks to innovate in their energy market and wants to advance, increase liquidity, and deploy a new identity system, which is kind of at the root of all innovation, how to deal with identities of those millions of IoT devices that touch the energy market, it's a very difficult decision. And this decision, or at least the partner that is chosen for the installation, needs to have a reputation. And the more deployment we have in more countries, the higher the reputation, the easier the decision for countries to follow up. And a big benefit here as well is the open source character. It needs to be open source. Don't
Yeah,
trust,
just
just prove.
verify.
Yeah.
So that was my next question. So if you look at Energy Web right now, what do you think? Like, why is Energy Web different, and why is Energy Web so unique? So you just told me, hey, the energy markets are super slow. Energy Web is doing great there. What do you think made Energy Web moving? So I don't want to say successful now. We are on the way. But what do you think triggered those regulators and companies to be interested in Energy Web?
If you're a regulated entity and you have to make a procurement decision, there is very clear processes for that, which
Mhm.
is there needs to be competition and so forth and so forth. So A, we are a non-profit company. It's a non-profit foundation. B, what we do is open source. And C, there is a lot of other members, supporting the same idea. And that was a key factor. So we kind of mixed some of the traditional energy consortia setups with crypto kind of Web3 mentality setup. And that was a breakthrough. That was very important to do that. And so if someone was like, yeah, you're just another vendor. No, look, everything is open, and look, these guys are using, these guys are using. You can prove it. You can even see the code base beforehand.
Yeah.
So at the first years was mostly testing. So we're running a lot of proof of concepts, and that's what in the corporate sector you need to prove first. So you do a trial and then you roll it out. And so from this perspective, there was no other consortium doing it like this in the crypto in the whole corporate sector, any business vertical. I remember a time into 18, 19, where we were approached by the steel industry. We were approached by the fashion industry. They wanted, they asked Anna and me for, to advise how to set this up, how to set up consortia in other business verticals. And, we just openly, show them our kind of rule. It was trial and error, to be honest, but it was well thought through. But it's I'm very happy we are where we are right now,
Yeah.
but it's still a long way. So for me, looking at the next few years, this is now we're in the adoption curve, and Jesse's a hell of a sales guy, and it's unbelievable what he's pulling off with so many partners there. And so in 2019, when the foundation was growing and exploding, and Gridsingularity and Rocky Mountain Institute were still working as subcontractors. At that time, we made a very crucial decision to operationalize the foundation in a more effective way. So half of Gridsingularity people and quite a lot of also Rocky Mountain people, they went directly into the foundation. The foundation built up its own daughter companies around the globe, and at that time was also when we had to make the decision who will be the CEO of the foundation, because before we were kind of jointly running it with the Rocky Mountain Institute, and so some people went to the supervisory board and some people stayed on operational level, and at Gridsingularity, at that time, we kind of we stopped the relationship, a business relationship, because of conflicts of interest, and I changed in the supervisory board at that time. And at Gridsingularity, we made the decision to continue the highest hanging fruit, which is the most difficult thing, because we were, sufficiently kind of. I I literally I wanted to try the most difficult, because they're like, okay, now the consortium is there. They will work on the lowest hanging fruits. The affiliates will do it, but nobody will work on the holy grail. And because it's very difficult to start to launch to have a startup running into the space, because you mostly live of the income is of research programs and so forth, and that's what we did. And that's what we're doing till today. And so we're participating in a lot of most of the EU Horizon projects and constantly advancing the space, talking with a lot of regulators, showing thousands of examples, and staying on top of the game, and
Yeah.
pushing the edge. Yeah.
So one of the questions right now is also like, how is Gridsingularity, as one of the co-founding companies, still contributing to the mission and vision of EnergyWeb, and how will this be in
Yeah.
the future?
Yeah. So in all the research projects, we always, we completely bound to the tech. So as EnergyWeb is bringing out one primitive after another, for example, the identity stack, the distributed data access management tools, we are immediately deploying this in our tools and demonstrating in research projects to regulators and to other corporates. And so it's like a loose kind of further kind of research arm, and supporting the deployment of the technology of Energy Web Foundation. Besides that, Anna and me were still on the supervisory board and supporting the mission. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. So, and I think this is probably the most asked question. So we have recently seen the video of, I believe it was Decentralized Lugano, where you mentioned
Yeah.
that the long-term plan is that Polkadot and NHWeb merge and one token will buy the other, which was very new to everyone. So
I'm not sure I said it exactly like that. So I said it's an option.
yeah.
So
So what is the
I'll tell you
context?
I'll tell you the thinking. So or the rationale behind it. There's always a team at the foundation thinking about the next step, because the proof of authority network that we had, we knew it would suffice from the functionality for a specific amount of time.
Mhm.
But as we have seen the whole space around DeFi growing, at one point in time, we knew we would want to connect all the stuff that's happening on the Energy Web to DeFi applications. Now, it would be very difficult for the foundation or for the network to do the same innovation that is happening on Ethereum or somewhere else, So why not enable interoperability? And bridges is not the best way to do it, because bridges is just another, we have seen in the recent years the hacks of many bridges, and they're like a central point
Yeah.
to the security breaches. So when Gav, when with Parity started developing kind of the concept of Polkadot, there was a lot of discussions actually how this could support for, the next step at Energy Web.
Mhm.
So in the sense that could Energy Web somehow utilize the technology of Polkadot, where you have trust, the relay chain separated from the functionality parachains, where you have a lot of specialized parachains, fintech, whatever, metaverse, whatever, and and then also, at one point in time, can we actually also have where we have energy specific parachains that can utilize all the other functionality without having the need to have another bridge, having reinventing the whole wheel that is already existing. And so there were a lot of discussions. How can we, as a sovereign network, what is the progress to go into the next stage of the technology? And why would it be necessary? There is a few examples. There is NG, for example, that does funding solar power plants in Africa, and this is the beginning of the energy market touching the DeFi sector. Now, the DeFi sector is already quite sophisticated. And so why reinventing the wheel if you have, let's assume you have an identity stack on Energy Web, and there is like proven track records of trading, let's say of specific assets. If you know how good an asset was trading, how much energy was supplied, this creates a massive basis to make decisions how to refund this, do factoring, all kind of financial activities around it. And for this, it would be great to use the same data for financial applications. And eventually, all the business verticals, financial, energy, insurance, is merging. It's all converging, and that's why interoperability was always like a big goal. How do we get to complete interoperability to all the other innovation that is happening there? And Polkadot was designed for this, and that's why for us it was always, how do we get there? Now, that was the open question, and then there is we have very close cooperation with Parity and Web3 Foundation, and I don't want to announce anything. This is Jesse's task. I'm in the supervisory board. I'm not operationally in this foundation, so all I can say, there is a solution being worked on. Now, saying kind of about the merger, why I was mentioning the potential merger is that there was, when I said this in Lugano 2 years before, we have seen
So,
in the sector,
Ed, for the
we
record, this was two
yeah,
years ago. When was Lugano? That was a year ago, right?
I think maybe a year ago, a
Yeah.
year
Okay.
ago, but like 3 years ago, we have, I mean, since beginning of crypto, kind of, we have seen a lot of network splits,
Hmm.
Ethereum Classic, Bitcoin many times, and this is basically when community splits, a synonym in corporate sector is, a spin-off. If companies spin off from each other, just separate the risk as well. And in the synonym in crypto is just community splits. They disagree, and one goes with this, one goes with the other attitude. And but what we were always wondering, in the corporate sector, yeah, there is spin-offs, but there's also mergers when company merge and become bigger. And we actually started seeing that a few years, 3 years ago. We started seeing this in the crypto where one network merged with the other one because it started to make sense, And but and so we only were looking at this as a potential possibility at that time. But now looking at a merger in crypto, you basically look, how can you combine the specific one ecosystem with the other? Are the values the same? Are the goals the same, and so forth? And it was very fast, it became clear, for energy sector, our validators, all corporates, in the Polkadot space, you have, bleeding edge innovation on a lot of kind of DeFi and metaverse. Like it's a very different mindset, you know. And so there is another solution being. There is definitely no merger happening. So I think there was a lot of fear around the token disappearing. Trust me, the token will not disappear. It is like, you know, we as founders of the foundation, you know, we received founder tokens, and besides that, we were also investors. We were an affiliate as Gridsingularity, and it's, you know, all the affiliates have the same interest, which is the token, and so it will be a very difficult thing, or you would have to create a very interesting incentive, you know, to do a merger. Anyways, it was politically not possible, we believe, you know, and that's why we didn't even further pursue this idea. But I found it as a thought experiment. I found it very interesting, you know, and I believe at Lugano I also said, you know, the possibility of this, you know.
Yeah, no,
But
definitely.
the thing is, on the other side, you know, I can say a lot, but I don't make any decisions, you know, because at the end it's the validators, is the consortium pulling off those decisions. All we can do is nudge, propose what is the next step, where to go. At the end, it's a decentralized network. We're not owning it, and so it's a democratic decision. Yeah.
Awesome. Very interesting. Um, so without that being said, what do you think? So I think we asked this question a couple years ago. You said it on Lugano as well, but I'm going to ask it again. Where do you think and how do you think NHG Web will look like in the coming 5 years? Because this year is basically the adoption year. We are switching from a lot of POCs into projects in production. NHG Web X has been announced. So where do you think NHG Web will be in the coming 5 years?
It's all difficult to make predictions like that, but you know, and if in 5 years we have, I mean, it could be if we have 30 countries onboarded where the identities are managed there, and um, you know, we are now already, I think, in 4, 5, 6 countries. Jesse has to confirm on a regulator level, which was 5 years.
Yeah,
So if those are being deployed in this year and next year, it becomes easier to onboard other countries, other regulators. So it could be more even. So it's like, you know, this is like it's Energy Web is with that pace. This could become, you know, demanded by, how to say, it's like you can't think it away anymore, because the energy market does, you know, just to give you an example, the energy market right now works on systems that were developed 25 years ago. So if you establish that a specific standard is being implemented at the core level, which is the identity management and data access management, it's probably there to stay for another 20, 30 years, you know, and because the market is moving so slow. And at the pace that Energy Web itself is also innovating, kind of next chain innovations. I think you know, we had a pretty good track record, you know, become the standard in the whole energy market.
yeah,
Specifically, also because of the attributes, is the foundation is a non-profit, but the chain is accessible for everyone. You know, there's very clear rules. There is not a single entity running it. You know, that's the main point. You know, and they are not dependent on the foundation as well, because they can do their own stuff as well. You know, so they don't need to do the deals only with Energy Web Foundation. There is a lot of work happening without the foundation even involved. You know, like all the startups like FlexiDAO and all these guys, they don't even work with the Energy Web Foundation. They just utilize the tech.
yeah,
And that is the goal, that at one point in time, the foundation eventually becomes obsolete. And when that happens, you know, that probably will only happen, you know, as the standard is being established, exactly like Internet TCP/IP today. This is I think in 10 years, Energy Web will become the TCP/IP of energy. It's just, there is not that's the standard. And um, yeah, I mean, it's a bet, but to be honest, I believe in it. And so for me, you know, if people ask themselves about the token, for me, it's very simple. We kicked this off, and we kicked it off as a moonshot, and I believe in it. Having seen what the foundation has done till today is unbelievable. It's just, I'm very proud of the team, and it was difficult. It was really, really difficult, but specifically also, issuing a token with corporates. Is it a security? Is it a utility and so forth? And there was a lot of discussions with the SEC, and I'm very happy. We got resolved all the issues out there,
Yeah,
and can sleep normally at night.
exactly. So
Yeah.
basically, the company that has the technology ready is the winner, right? Do you agree with that statement?
Say it again, please.
So Energy Web has Energy Web is building on the technology, and the technology will be the winner in the coming 5 years.
It's always both, it's always both. There's a lot of examples where the technology wasn't the winner, but the stronger consortium. But the big factor was always open source is the key. And
Open source is the key.
so
That's
I
it.
think I think in Energy Web, it's the group of the companies, it's the consortium,
Mhm.
because all of those companies, besides this consortium, they're working together in other consortia, and so it's a big trust issue. So joint innovation is a big thing in energy, and there is no other such consortium energy market. There is no other with such a focus on this technology. So technology, yes, but it's also the consortium.
That's it. Awesome. So that's it, Ed. Thank you so much for joining.
That
And
was it. Awesome.
that was it. There you go. It's 45 minutes. No, previous
Yeah,
session got deleted by Twitter, so I don't want to make it too long. Thanks
yeah,
everyone
yeah,
for
sure.
joining, and I will talk to you guys soon in our next session.
Bye. Thank you very much. Bye bye.